You're not my daughter anymore. Dad's words echoed through the empty hallway of our once shared home. I stood there, duffel bags slung over my shoulder, fighting back tears as I watched him rip up the college acceptance letter I'd been so proud of just hours earlier. Dad, please, I whispered. MIT is my dream. Your dream. He laughed bitterly. Your brother needs the college fund more than you do. James is going to take over the company someday. He needs a proper business degree, not some. He waved his hand dismissively. Computer science nonsense. Behind him, Mom stood silently wringing her hands, saying nothing. She never did when it came to defending me from Dad's decisions. James, my younger brother by 2 years, leaned against the doorframe, a smug smile playing on his lips. The money's already been transferred to James's account, Dad said coldly. If you want to waste your time with computers, you can figure out how to pay for it yourself. I straightened my spine, years of disappointment hardening into determination. Fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll do it myself. All of it. Don't come crawling back when you fail. James called out as I walked toward the door. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I won't. That was 10 years ago. 10 years of struggle, determination, and, ultimately, success. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through MIT, coding late into the night while my classmates partied. The small web development business I started in my dorm room grew into something bigger than anyone could have predicted. Now, sitting in my office on the 40th floor of downtown's most prestigious building, I stared at the document in front of me. Bennett Technologies, my parents' company, was failing. James, the golden child, had run it into the ground with risky investments and terrible management. Their stock was plummeting and they needed a buyout to survive. Miss Carter, my assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. The Bennett Technologies board is here for the meeting. I smiled, smoothing the front of my tailored suit. They had no idea who was behind the takeover bid. The investment group's name gave nothing away, and I'd conducted all negotiations through intermediaries. Send them in, I said, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows. 10 years ago they'd thrown me out with nothing. Now I was about to become their boss. The door opened. I heard footsteps enter, then a sharp intake of breath. Emma. Dad's voice, usually so confident, was barely more than a whisper. I turned slowly, savoring the moment as recognition dawned on their faces. James looked like he'd seen a ghost. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad stood frozen, color draining from his face. Hello, Dad, I said calmly, gesturing to the conference table. Shall we begin? The silence was deafening. Dad's hands gripped the back of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. James recovered first, his shock melting into his familiar sneer. What kind of joke is this? He demanded, looking around as if expecting someone else to appear. I sat at the head of the table, opening a leather portfolio. No joke, James. Please. Everyone take a seat. We have a lot to discuss. Mom sank into a chair, still staring at me like I was a ghost. The other board members, mostly Dad's old golf buddies, shifted uncomfortably in their expensive suits. This is ridiculous, Dad snapped. We're here to meet with Carter Global Investments. I smiled and slid a business card across the table. You are Emma Carter, CEO and founder of Carter Global Investments. Though you might remember me better as Emma Bennett. James laughed, but there was panic behind it. There's no way you could afford to buy Bennett Technologies. This is some kind of sick revenge fantasy. I pulled out my tablet and projected the company's financials onto the screen. Let's talk numbers, shall we? Slide after slide exposed their failures. In the past 3 years under your leadership, Bennett Technologies has lost 60% of its market value. Debt has tripled. 4 major clients have terminated their contracts. You've had 3 CFOs resign in 18 months. I paused, letting the silence stretch. And now you're 3 weeks away from defaulting on your loans. The color drained from James's face. These weren't just numbers. This was his failure laid bare. How did you get this information? Dad demanded. I've been watching Bennett Technologies for years, I replied coolly. Watching you promote James despite his lack of qualifications. Watching him drive your legacy into the ground. Watching and waiting. I stood, circling the table slowly. While you were busy running this company into bankruptcy, I was building something bigger. Carter Global Investments now holds controlling interests in 3 major tech firms, 2 banks, and a venture capital firm with over $2 billion in assets. That's impossible, James whispered. Remember when you said computers were a waste of time? I stopped behind his chair. Funny how things work out. One of the board members, Mr. Harrison, cleared his throat. Miss Carter. Emma, what exactly are you proposing? I returned to my seat and placed a folder on the table. A complete buyout. Carter Global Investments will acquire Bennett Technologies for $40 per share, which, given your situation, is more than generous. That's a 30% premium over current market value, another board member noted, stunned. Dad slammed his hand on the table. This is our company. Our family's legacy. I corrected quietly. Until you gave it to James to destroy. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. Emma, please. This company, it's all we have left. All you have left, I echoed, meeting her eyes. You had a daughter who wanted nothing more than to make you proud. To modernize this company. But you threw her out at 18 because her dreams didn't fit your plans. I opened another file on the screen, 2 charts side by side. You have 2 choices. Accept the buyout or watch Bennett Technologies collapse in 3 months when your loans come due. And believe me, I said, meeting each board member's gaze, no one else will offer you terms this generous. The room erupted in whispers. Board members checked their phones, confirming my numbers. James sat slumped, his arrogance finally gone. Dad rose abruptly. We need time to discuss this. You have 24 hours, I said, gathering my papers. After that, my offer drops by $5 per share, per day. They filed out, shell-shocked. Dad lingered behind, shoulders sagging. Emma, he hesitated. How did you do all this? I turned toward the window, gazing at the skyline. Remember Tommy Chin? The quiet kid from my high school programming club. Dad nodded weakly. He and I founded our first tech company in college. Sold it for $50 million 2 years after graduation. That was just the beginning. I smiled coldly. Turns out those computer science classes weren't such a waste of time after all. He took a step forward, reaching out slightly. Emma, The meeting's over, Dad. I cut him off. 24 hours. Make your decision. When the door closed behind him, I exhaled slowly. Sarah appeared with a glass of water. Are you okay? She asked softly. I looked at the old family photo still on the screen, taken just weeks before they'd thrown me out. We looked happy. Normal. If only I'd known then what I know now. I'm fine, I said, turning off the display. Schedule a meeting with legal for tomorrow morning. Something tells me we'll be drafting acquisition papers. Sarah nodded, then paused. Emma, for what it's worth, you showed them more mercy than they ever showed you. I stared at my reflection in the darkened screen, no longer the scared 18-year-old girl they'd abandoned, but the powerful woman I'd become. It's not about mercy, Sarah, I said quietly. It's about closure. It's about proving them wrong, I whispered to my reflection. All of them. The next 24 hours moved like a perfectly choreographed dance. I had anticipated every move, planned for every scenario. By morning, my phone was flooded with messages from board members, each one trying to negotiate privately, hoping to secure their position in the inevitable transition. I sat in my home office, a penthouse overlooking the city, scrolling through emails when an unexpected name appeared on the screen. My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won. Emma, please meet me for coffee. Just us. No Dad. No James. There's something you need to know. I almost declined, but something about her wording made me pause. After a brief hesitation, I replied with the address of a small cafe, not one of the polished high society spots she preferred, but the humble coffee shop where I'd worked during my first year of college. When I arrived, Mom was already there, looking distinctly out of place among students and freelancers. She'd aged gracefully, silver streaks softening the once carefully maintained blonde. You look beautiful, she said softly as I sat down. And successful. What do you want, Mom? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Professional. She wrapped her manicured hands around her untouched cup. There's something you should know about the company. About why your father was so insistent on James taking over. I leaned back, studying her carefully. Mom had always been the quiet one, the perfect corporate wife who never questioned Dad publicly. This was new territory. The company, It's not what you think, she continued, her voice lowering. Your father's been hiding things. Major things. The real reason he didn't want you involved wasn't about tradition, or James being the son. What are you saying? She glanced around, then pulled a small USB drive from her handbag and slid it across the table. This contains files I've been collecting for years. Financial records, hidden accounts, unofficial agreements. Your father, she hesitated, taking a shaky breath. He's been running 2 sets of books for over a decade. I turned the USB over in my hands, the weight of it far heavier than it looked. Why are you giving me this? Because you're smarter than James. You always were. You'll know what to do with it. She reached out, touching my hand briefly. And because I should have done this 10 years ago, when he threw you out. Before I could respond, she stood, smoothing her skirt. Whatever you decide to do with that information, I'll understand. Just remember, some of us did believe in you, Emma. We were just too cowardly to say it. She left me sitting there, staring at the drive that could change everything. Back in my office, I spent hours combing through the files. Mom was right, the corruption ran deep. False invoices, phantom employees, offshore accounts. Dad hadn't just mismanaged the company. He'd been bleeding it dry. Miss Carter. Sarah's voice interrupted my thoughts. The Bennett Technologies board is requesting an emergency meeting. They've made a decision about the buyout. I smiled grimly, pocketing the USB. Perfect timing. Set it for 3 p.m. The boardroom felt different this time. Gone was the shock and outrage from yesterday, replaced by grim acceptance. Dad sat at the far end of the table, avoiding my gaze. James's chair was empty. Where's my brother? I asked. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. James resigned this morning. Effective immediately. I see. I opened my laptop and connected it to the screen. Before we discuss your decision, I'd like to share some new information that's come to light. Dad's head snapped up, eyes widening as the first document appeared. A detailed map of his secret financial network. As you can see, I said calmly, Bennett Technologies has been operating under some interesting accounting practices. Chaos erupted. Board members jumped to their feet, shouting questions and accusations. Dad remained seated, his face pale as decades of deception unraveled before him. That's enough, he barked finally. This meeting is over. Actually, Dad, I said evenly, it's just beginning. He froze. You see my offer from yesterday? I continued, closing one file and opening another. It's no longer on the table. The room fell silent. Given these new revelations, I said, my tone icy calm, I'm adjusting my offer to $20 per share, still generous considering the legal implications of what I've just revealed. You wouldn't, Dad whispered. Your own father? You made your choice 10 years ago, I replied. Now I'm making mine. One by one, the board members turned to him, their expressions shifting from confusion to betrayal. Mr. Harrison stood. I move to accept Miss Carter's revised offer, he said firmly. All in favor? Hands rose around the table. Dad watched helplessly as his empire crumbled. Not from James's incompetence this time, but from his own deceit. Very well, I said, sliding contracts across the table. Let's make this official. As the board signed the documents, Dad finally stood, shoulders slumped. Why? He asked quietly. Why dig all this up? You could have taken the company cleanly. I walked over, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Because you didn't just rob me of a family, Dad. You robbed your employees of their security. Your investors of their trust. This isn't revenge, it's justice. 6 months later, Bennett Technologies was gone, reborn as Carter Innovation Systems. The old guard had been replaced by a team of young, ambitious professionals who shared my vision for the future. I stood in my father's old office. My office now. The heavy oak furniture and hunting trophies were gone, replaced with glass, light, and innovation. The only thing I'd kept was his old desk, a quiet reminder of how far I'd come. Miss Carter, Sarah appeared in the doorway. The quarterly numbers are in. I took the tablet and scanned the report. Profits had doubled. Our new sustainable tech division was already turning heads in Silicon Valley. Also, she hesitated. Your brother is here. I looked up sharply. James hadn't been seen since his resignation. Send him in. He entered quietly, different now. Gone were the tailored suits and arrogance. He wore jeans and a simple shirt, humility replacing entitlement. "Hello, Emma," he said softly. "James." I gestured to a chair. "What brings you here?" He sat, fidgeting with his wedding ring. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About everything, how we treated you." I waited silently. "I'm not here to ask for my job back," he added quickly. "I know I don't deserve that." He opened a folder and slid it toward me. "I've been developing this app. It connects small businesses with local investors. Nothing fancy, but..." I skimmed the proposal. The idea was solid, surprisingly so. "You did this yourself?" He nodded. "After everything fell apart, I went back to school. Took some coding classes. Turns out you were right. Technology is the future." For the first time in a long while, I smiled.